Welcome back to the Leaders of Transformation podcast. Now, when life knocks you down, how do you get back up? And how do you stay back up? Our guest today is Glenn Lundy, and he is going to talk about that. He is happily married with 8 children. He is one of the most successful automotive dealership GMs in the country. He's also the host of the wildly popular Facebook live show Rise and Grind, but it really wasn't always like that, and he's going to talk about that here. And he's going to talk about what he did to turn his life around, turn his mindset around, and what you need to do be able to transform your life and create the results that you're looking for, and really become who you've been meant to be. So the best version of you. So Glenn, we're glad to have you here. Welcome to Leaders of Transformation.
Yeah, well, thank you. Super excited to be here, and I appreciate you sharing this space and time with me. It means the world to me.
It is such a pleasure, and I so appreciate a little shout out to Sharon Folk. She is the one who introduced us, and I always like to do a shout out to those that support our show, the amazing booking agents and people that refer guests, recommend guests, whether they be listeners and they hear the show and they say, "Hey, I think this would be a great guest," or somebody who formally does it through a PR agency or something like that. I just really appreciate that, and that's you, the listeners, the viewers as well. We just appreciate you listening in and sharing it with your friends. If you like this episode, please do share it and leave us a rating and review on your favorite podcast platform. And we really appreciate that. It helps us to get a greater reach as well.
Yeah,
So
no
with
doubt.
that, Glenn, let's dive in this journey, this this transformation journey of yours. Where did that start?
Well, there's really two big seasons of my life is what I call them, and now I'm maybe going into a third season. So there's been another transformation over the last couple of years, but the big transformation was going from 2D to 3D for me. And so, I was living all the way through my 20s. I was living what I call a 2D life. So mind and body, right? If it looked good and it felt good, the answer was yes, plain and simple, right? And that's really how I made my decisions. And I had a very Darwinistic approach on life, survival of the fittest. If I could get one over you on you, if I took advantage of you or any of those things, that was your fault, not mine. I was just the more evolved predator was really my mindset when I was living in this 2D existence. And during that season, I had a lot of success as far as in my career. Like I was growing in the auto industry, but my life around that was falling apart in every way that you could possibly imagine. I had a relationship with a young lady, her and I had a daughter. That relationship fell apart. I ended up losing custody of my daughter when she was 6 years old. I burned every bridge you could possibly burn. People learned I wasn't someone you could necessarily trust, and long story short, living that 2D existence landed me homeless in the southern part of California, Southern California, in the San Diego area. And so I was homeless, nowhere to go, no one to call. I had burnt every bridge, and in that homelessness, the worst part about homelessness, Nicole, is not that you don't have a house, not that you don't have a car, not that you don't have money, but ultimately you become invisible. And so I started to just blend in with the background, right? Like just imagine, Nicole, here you are in San Diego, California. It's beautiful. There's $1 million homes everywhere. You got the ocean, you got the beach, you've got people running and holding hands, and all of those, picturesque situations that come along with San Diego, California. And here I was, people wouldn't make eye contact with me. No one ever said my name. Every day was the same. I'd wake up, I would sleep on a bus at night, and I would wake up in the morning, get off the bus, go look for change, get a sausage McMuffin with eggs so I could hit all my food groups for the day, and then go look for more change all day so I could get back on the bus, right? It was like Groundhog Day. Every day the same, invisible, start to just blend in with the background. And so the worst part, that was definitely the worst part of homelessness, and that invisible feeling became hopelessness, and hopelessness became depression. and depression became suicidal thoughts, and suicidal thoughts became ultimately a suicide attempt, where I tried to drown myself in the Pacific Ocean just off the beaches of La Jolla, California. And that's really where my transformation began, as I was plucked out of the ocean and put back on the beach. I had a bit of a revelation, and maybe it was God that spoke to me, or the universe, or intuition, or whatever words you want to use. But all of a sudden, I realized, hey Glenn, you take yourself wherever you go, brother. Like, you've been in different cities, you've been around different people, you've had different relationships, you've had everything around you's been different. The result continues to be the same. So you are the only constant. And once I realized that, man, Nicole, it was mind blowing. I'm like, okay, wait a minute. If I am the catalyst of all things bad in my life, does that mean I can be the catalyst of good things in my life? Like, I'm a student, I'm a curious person. And that question, can I be the catalyst of positive things in my life, caused me to go on this journey of self development. And I figured, well, I should probably figure out who I am. If I can figure out who I am, then maybe I can figure out how to use this tool that is me to create a better end game than the one I had been creating. And so as I started learning more about self, I learned that we are actually 3D, not 2D, mind, body, and spirit. And so that shifted to my thinking to, okay, wait a minute. If it looks good and it feels good and it is good, then the answer is yes. And that was really the transformative moment for me. Like, oh, wait a minute. Okay. Not just looks good, feels good, and is good. Good for others, right? Makes a positive impact in other people's lives. And so that really opened my eyes, and from there, in Nicole, it was really a season of two steps forward, one step back, sometimes one step forward, two steps back. I'm very stubborn, I'm hard-headed. So even after revelation, even after this new understanding, I still had a lot of old bad habits that took me a while to get rid of. But through that process, better understanding. The universe brought me to Kentucky. I met my wife here in Kentucky, and when her and I got married, she got pregnant or before we got married, she got pregnant right away. And here I was in the same position I was 14 years before, however many years before. And I'm like, okay, I'm not going through that whole thing again. I am not going to lose custody of this child. I'm not going to have an awful relationship. I am not going to do all of those things. And so I really decided to commit to just being a better person and understanding who I am, being a better father and a better husband. And since then, now, like you said in the beginning, I'm a husband to one and a father to eight. And I've had an opportunity to do a morning show and travel the world and speak on stages and do things that are really making a positive impact on this planet.
Amazing, and I think that there's a lot of people that can relate to that story. Maybe they weren't homeless, but they were at that point of inner homelessness, of not knowing where they stand and or where they are to go from there, and so powerful. And this whole idea of shifting from a victim to somebody who can actually create change and be the catalyst for change, that's a huge shift. So how did you make that shift? You mentioned about personal development and so forth. So maybe unpack that. If somebody's there right now, they're listening and they're saying, "That's great, Glenn. How do I make that shift?" In that
Yeah, I
moment,
think
you
it's a
came off that beach and it's like, what did you do? Go grab a book?
yeah,
Like, what did you
literally.
do?
So it's really interesting, and I like to clarify. Everybody has their own path, right? Like, everybody's path is going to be a little bit different. Everybody's journey is a little bit different, and so in my journey, that very next day uh, after attempting to take my own life, that very next day, I saw a woman walking on the beach selling books and giving away books, and this woman had been there every day. She goes there every day and delivers, but I couldn't see her before, because before
Yeah.
I saw the world completely differently. And so I saw her, and we had this conversation. And she was selling this book called Dianetics, which is the study of the subconscious mind versus the conscious mind, and it was written by L. Ron Hubbard back in the 50s. Ultimately, the founder and creator of Scientology. And so she was promoting this book, and I was curious, and so I learned more about it. And she put me in her car, and she took me down the street and took me to the Orange County Church of Scientology, where I took an IQ test, and they were like, "You're super smart. You should be on our staff." And they gave me a job, like day right out the gate that very next day. They gave me a job there at the church, and they started letting me take courses there at the church. And there was a woman there at the church who took in people like me. And so she let me stay in her house with like 14 other people. We all slept in this big room on the floor in sleeping bags. And I started this journey of how to communicate, how to understand the subconscious mind, how to get rid of engrams and files that are stored that are ultimately controlling your decisions. And ultimately, through those studies, came to the realization of this thing called a soul, right? They call it a thetan in Scientology, but we call it a soul is a more common term. But this third dimension, this third aspect, which for me, because I was such a Darwinistic, science driven person, when Scientology started talking about a third dimension, I was like, okay, wait a minute. Maybe I don't need to be so hardcore. We are made of sticks and mud and bone, and 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 I need to dive down this road a little bit further. And so I did. And in Scientology, we reached a point where I didn't really feel like that was my jam, right? Like I learned so much and I was exposed to so much about myself, but I really wanted to explore this thetan thing, this soul thing. And so I left the church after 6 months, and I started studying Buddhism, and I started studying Christianity. And ultimately, through those studies, I found my way, my path to spiritual enlightenment through Jesus and Christianity. And uh, that caused me to start exploring some things like Napoleon Hill, Think and Grow Rich, and um, The Secret, Law of Attraction. And I started listening to really like Les Brown, who's really a preacher, but he's a motivational speaker, right? But I started listening to Les Brown, and that started to make sense because I was in the spiritual world. And then Les Brown, I graduated from Les to Eric Thomas, and Eric Thomas starts punching you in the face, and he's much more aggressive than Les is. Les is the guy that like pick you up and coddle you while you're hurting and in pain, and Eric Thomas just punches you in the face over and over and over. And then from Eric Thomas, I graduated to the Jim Rohns and the John Maxwells and 21 Irrefutable Laws of Leadership, and just started really like consuming content because, as because success leaves clues, and it's not about reinventing the wheel. It's about exploring the information that's out there, finding out what really resonates with you and your path and your journey, and then executing on those things. And so, really, that was the path. A lot of videos, a lot of books, a lot of research, and just really trying to understand, who I am. And then now that I know who I am and whose I am, then from there going, okay, great. How do you use this tool now that you know that it exists?
Oh, I love that. I love that because one of the things that I've been talking about and even articulating with people even just recently, especially, talking this about this idea of identity, of knowing who we are and whose we are. And only then can you then really understand what your assignment or your purpose is in life
Yeah, no doubt.
and go out to go on to fulfill that. But there's a lot of times I find people are looking for, like, how do I make money? Okay, I'm homeless, I need to make money, so they go into the doing without with and even mindset sometimes can be kind of a dangerous place to get into this. Like, it's all about the mind, right? It's all about the, I have to think, I have to do the affirmations and all of that, but it's really what you're talking about is a much deeper shift in transformation of transforming the way you see yourself, the way you see others, the way you see the world around you. And it's a spiritual shift that I hear that you had. And then from there, that influenced your mindset, which influenced your behaviors and actions, which of course then impacted your results. And
Yeah, no
so
doubt.
really, really powerful. Now, how do you what you've obviously made this shift, you immersed yourself in all of this content. I can totally relate to that. I grew up on personal development. I was listening to tapes when I was 7 years old and falling to
Nice.
sleep listening to them. And it's like you become, as I remember one guy, he said, I am a tape. Like I actually, it's just like I start to, as I we are a product of our environment. So what we
Right.
garbage in, garbage out, good in, good out. Whatever we put in is going to come out. And so you get to that point of discipline and of having this powerful mindset, and you are known for that. You're a high performer. You teach salespeople. You teach car salespeople, no less. And that's a tough business to be in. Many would say, how do you how do you maintain that mindset for those that are thinking about, like, okay, I had somebody recently, for example, who said, "Oh, my mindset's slipping a bit, and why, I feel like I'm almost like they were beating themselves up because their mindset was slipping." And so I was explaining to him that it's like you take a shower. You're on mute, by the way. It's like you take a shower every day, right? It's like you take a
Right.
shower every day, you eat every day, you've gotta feed your mind every day. So what do you do to maintain your mindset now?
Yeah. So, in through all those studies and all those books and all those videos, the I was looking for a common denominator, right? What is the common denominator? The thing that really all of these people do? Because Nicole, it's like you talked about just a second ago when you were saying, it's a big transformation taking responsibility for where you're at, right? Instead of, okay, I'm homeless. How do I go make money? The question is, I'm homeless. What did I do to get here? Right?
Yes.
You got to shift that question. It's not how do I get out? It's how did I get here? Because until we understand how we got to the places, like that's not a natural state. Most people don't end up homeless. Most people find a way to pay their bills. Most people survive on this planet. Otherwise, we wouldn't be a growing, thriving planet. Most do. So when you find that you are not progressing, you are not evolving, it's really a question of why not? What am I doing that is keeping me from versus a question of what do I need to do to get out? And I think that's an important shift for people to understand is you have to reflect, you have to look at self, you have to go back, right? And so as I studied all of these people, these phenomenal, powerful people, I was looking for the common denominator. And the common denominator that I found is that every successful person has some type of powerful morning routine, some type of morning routine that taps into mind, body, and spirit every single day. Now, what time they do their morning routine varies, right? Some people do morning routine. You got celebrities in Hollywood, their morning starts at 3 o'clock in the afternoon, right? It's a different lifestyle. So I don't really care what time you get up. It's just about what you do when you first get up. That first hour of the day is the most important. Mind wise, science has proven that your brain is just in consume mode in that first hour. And so, if you can capitalize on that, you can really start to change your life through a foundational kickstart. And so, the way I stay on track and stay motivated and stay inspired is I've put together 5 steps that I do every single morning to kick off my day before I go out into the world. And those steps are fairly simple, right? No snooze button, never hit the snooze button. Snooze button's the devil. Number 2, don't touch your phone first thing in the morning. You're not ready. You're not ready for all of the violence, the politics, the division, the racism, like you're not ready for that first thing in the morning. There's a quote in the movie Friday, I think it is. He's like, "Dang, you gang banging on bacon, right? Like, why are you so mad? It's breakfast and you're already angry." So we don't want to jump on our phones. So that's number 2. Number 3 is gratitude and goals. I write down what I'm thankful for, and then I write down my goals, the things that I'm reaching for. And I know that sounds like 2 steps, but I put it as one for a very important reason. I think everyone can say, yes, somebody in my life has told me to write my goals. But yet 82% of people don't ever write their goals. And I think the reason for that, Nicole, is that maybe they tried. They tried to write goals, but they didn't get a result. Or they tried to write goals and it actually made them feel less than. See, when you're sitting down going, I wish I had a bigger house. I wish I had more money. I wish I was better looking. That can actually create a negative frequency within you, which will make you not want to go back to that. You're like, gosh, that's an icky feeling. I suck, right? I don't want to go write my goals down. I suck. Whereas if you start with gratitude, I'm thankful to have a roof over my head. I'm thankful that my bills are paid. I'm thankful that I woke up today because a lot of people didn't, right? When we start with gratitude, now it's a positive frequency. We release that out into our goals, right? It's okay to reach, it's okay to want more, it's okay to want to evolve as long as we're coming from a foundation of gratitude from where we're at. So I consider that one step, gratitude and goals. Then step 4 is take care of the physical. I don't care if you crawl, walk, run, play basketball, go golfing, whatever it is. An object in motion tends to stay in motion, an object at rest tends to stay at rest. So get freaking in motion, right? And then number 5 is you've been really selfish all morning, Nicole. Shame on you. You wouldn't answer your emails, you wouldn't answer your texts, you won't talk to nobody. You're worried about your gratitude, your goals, you won't touch your phone, all those things. You've been selfish all morning. And actually, congratulations, you need to be, because now that you're in this powerful space, this positive frequency, you can now do step 5, which is to send out an encouraging message. And I don't care if it's a text message, Facebook message, a little sticky note that you put for your wife or your husband or for your kids, whatever it is, release the positive energy out into the universe. When you do that, not only does it impact those that you reach, but ultimately energy can only be converted. It cannot be created. That's why we have windmills that convert energy, right? We have to convert and it never dissipates. So that positive energy you release out into the universe ultimately comes back to you in some other type of form. So I do those 5 steps every single morning. No snooze, no phone, gratitude and goals, take care of the physical, send out an encouraging message. And that's the foundation that keeps me rocking and rolling every single day.
Brilliant. Brilliant. I love what you said there about the gratitude and goals because when I find that I've had people say that, and even successful people say, "Oh, I hate writing my goals." Marginally successful, okay, they're successful, and then there's like, right, so
Right,
there's
right,
levels of that,
right.
and they'll say, "I hate writing goals and so forth because I don't ever achieve them." And it's actually the assumption. So you can write your goal from the assumption of like what you were talking about. If somebody feels crappy, it's because they're actually coming from a place of scarcity. I don't have. The assumption is I
That's
don't
right.
have and I need to have to be whatever, blah, blah, blah. I need to be happier, to be this, to be that, and all that stuff. But really, when you combine it with gratitude, then you're coming from that place of abundance. You're coming from that place of look what I already have and I'm building on it. So I love that. That's very, very powerful.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Let's talk about let's talk about playing big versus playing small. I know that you talk to people about, and we were talking about this previously when we chatted about this idea that so many people are playing small and they have so much more capacity to play bigger. Now, bigger doesn't have to necessarily mean more. It's just whatever that is for them. So, can you
Sure.
talk about how people can recognize, and even maybe people who are like I just said, successful and feeling successful. I had somebody one time, I invited him to a workshop. He was a referral from someone else, and I got on the phone and talked to this person, and he's like, "Well, I'm doing pretty good. I mean, I make 120,000 a year, and I da da da, and so forth." And I said, "That's fantastic. Congratulations. How many people are you helping to do that?"
Right.
And he's like, "I never thought of that." So it's levels of and gradients of that, but yeah, how does someone know, in your experience, that how do they recognize when they're playing too small for themselves and where their capacities, not comparing to somebody else, but for what they're capable of?
Yeah, I'm a firm believer that, in order to live a joyful, purposeful life, you must always experience growth, right? As soon as you stop growing, you're dying. That's just simple, right? I think everybody can understand that. And so the only way to ensure that you continue growing is we as humans are very much like I don't know, like certain fish or certain reptiles. You put them in a cage, they're only going to grow this big. You put them in a bigger cage, they grow bigger. You put them in an even bigger cage, they grow bigger, right? And so it's important that individuals understand that by nature we tend to be attracted to things that are like us, people that look like us, that talk like us, that agree with us, that feel like us, that are doing similar as us. That tends to be what we're attracted to. And it's really funny. I love going to the mall and I'll watch like groups of people, they're all dressed the same. Those like you'll see 8 kids from, 8 16-year-old kids, and they're all wearing the same type of shorts and the same type of poloed shirt, right? The same type of shoes. Like we are just attracted naturally to people that have these similarities as us. But that's where the danger lies. The danger lies is when you get in a room of a bunch of people that are going to just kiss your butt, say yes, and agree, and doesn't cause us to grow. We're putting ourselves in those cages. So I think what I would challenge all people to do is spend time with people that don't look like you, that don't think like you, that don't believe what you believe. Spend time traveling into cultures and areas that really make you uncomfortable, really uncomfortable, right? Get into masterminds or networks or video series or podcast series with people that are achieving things at a level you never even dreamed and imagined. And as you start to do that, you start to realize my fishbowl is kind of small, and maybe I need to jump into that fishbowl over there and see what that experience is like. It's amazing, Nicole. I used to think so. I do come from the auto industry. I've been in auto for 23 years now. My dealership that I was working for, the second largest used car franchise dealership in America, was generating roughly, let's just say 1.4, $1.5 million in revenue monthly, right? Out of this big store with 300 employees and all this inventory and so on and so forth, right? And I thought like that's amazing. That's a big deal. Now this is the same store that when I started working there 8 years earlier was a no-name store nobody had ever really heard of. And so we grew at 800% to where it's doing over $1 million a month. And we're like, that's a big deal. I stepped out of that and started hanging around with some other people. And I'm like, I met this woman who's making $1 million a month, and she's got like 5 employees, and she's making a much bigger impact worldwide because she gives 50% of what she's earning to building houses in third world countries and like creating fresh water for places that don't have fresh water. Like she's doing the global stuff. Like we were doing community stuff. She's doing global stuff. And I'm just looking like, golly, I didn't even, my brain couldn't even process $1 million a month once we got to that. And this woman's doing that. It's just amazing, right? Like it doesn't take as long as we think, and it's not as hard as we think. It's just the environments that we've been put in have taught us that this is the ceiling. But once you get to the ceiling and you peek over the edge, you realize, holy smokes, I've been playing small for so long, right? And so my suggestion is get around different people, go into different environments, explore different opportunities, make yourself really, really uncomfortable, and you'll start to see that you may be playing small. And if you really step into your greatness, you'll have opportunities to make a massive impact in other people's lives. And I really believe that's what that little dash is like born on date, expiration date, the dash, impact. What kind of positive impact can you make in other people's lives? So that's what I would suggest.
Amen. Well, that dash, if you think about like you're not taking any of it with you when you go. So it's what you leave behind. It's so funny. We spend so much time trying to acquire and amass things that at the end of the day, we're not somebody else, as Solomon said, somebody else is going to enjoy it. Somebody else is going to be able, and that's great. And that's great that they'll be able to enjoy
Sure,
it. And so building an inheritance for your children's children, of course.
no
But
doubt.
yeah, there's so much more to that in terms of the impact that you can have, and you described that there with this lady and what you're doing. So that's awesome. How do
And I know there's
you?
probably a
Yeah,
listener right now, Nicole. There's probably a listener going, I do that. I talk to different people. I look at like I challenge people like go to your phone, look in your phone and see who you've texted or called in the last week. And I think that you'll be shocked to see how similar the people that you talk to on the daily are to you. I think you'll be shocked. Like, when's the last time you spoke to a person of color, right? Like somebody, I'm going to ask you that. Somebody who's listening right now. When's the last time you called and had a one-on-one conversation with a person of color, right? Or of a different color of you? If you're an African American person, an Asian person, when's the last time you called and spoke with a white person, right? Like, it's so we just fall into these comfort zones. We really, really do. And it goes back to what we were talking about earlier. Um, it's not about what do we do next. It's about recognizing what we're doing now. That's got us right here. And once we recognize it, then we can shift it, pivot it, and fix it to get to those next levels.
I love that. I love that. I had a question here that I wanted to ask you because you have worked with car salespeople. So I'm going to pivot just for a moment here. We've got a bunch of entrepreneurs that are listening and they are looking to grow their business. So, of course, you've given them so much value in terms of like being in the now and where they are now. When it comes to sales, car sales is kind of one of those things that's like the thing that most people would avoid, right? They say like, "I'll do anything but that," kind of thing.
Sure.
In terms of selling, they find it very difficult. What can entrepreneurs learn from car sales people in terms of how to market themselves and the way they put themselves out there and the way they persist and all of that? Whatever
Yeah.
I'm looking for the gems from what you've learned because you've worked in this industry so successfully.
Yeah. The car business is my favorite. I love it. Right? I love it. And now I work with owners and general managers of dealerships to help them scale and help them see what you were talking about, that they've been playing small. Like I go into these dealerships that've been around 50 years and they're selling, 110, cars a month. And they've said, well, we're in a small town and this is all we can sell. And I'm like, dude, I was in a small town, population 9,600, and we sold 1,043 cars in 27 business days closed on Sundays. Like it's possible. It's possible. And so I get the opportunity now to work with these owners and help them see that, which is really a gift. It's really, really fun. We've been able to transform a lot of lives. But what I love most about the car business is there's no, I call it, and one day I'm going to do a documentary on this. We call it no down payment. No down payment. You can walk into the car business. You don't have to have a degree. You don't have to have two nickels to rub together. Like I had one kid come in and he interviewed with me. And uh, at the end of the interview, I noticed when he walked in that his pants were a little too big and he didn't have a belt. And so he interviewed with me, and I really liked the kid, and I hired the kid. And as he was walking out, I said, "And buddy, get a belt. Like, get put yourself together. Like you're one of mine now, right?" And he turned around and he looked at me and he said, "I'm sorry, I don't have money to buy a belt." And it hit me, right? And so I gave him $40 and said, "Go get yourself a nice belt, and I'll see you here tomorrow." But that is a story. He's now incredibly successful. He's been in the business for a long time now, and homeowner, and married, and having a kid, and all that great stuff, right? Um, but those stories come out of the car business all the time because there is no down payment needed. There's no prerequisite. And I think that the way that that translates over to entrepreneurship is it's the same thing. There's no down payment needed. Like anybody that has grit and desire and fight and is willing to learn and be educated and be humbled can thrive in the car business and can thrive in entrepreneurship. So I really think it takes uh, a commitment level And sometimes people have to hit really low spots before they're willing to make that type of commitment level. But what you see in car sales, because it's all commissions, man. There's no guarantees of nothing, and you basically are a little entrepreneur. You're your own guy, and you're going to get some resources from the dealership. They're going to do some marketing, some advertising, so on and so forth. But ultimately, it's up to you to hunt, and that's really the word. It's hunt. Hunting is a active thing. Hunting is something that requires preparation. It requires planning. It requires rehearsing. It requires agility. It requires flexibility. It requires um, spontaneity. It requires the ability to pivot and adjust in a moment, right? In a moment, because nothing's ever going to go as expected. And so as an entrepreneur, the lessons that I would take from the most successful car people in the world is A, make a commitment to the end result. Don't spend a bunch of time trying to figure out how the end result. We do need a plan, but plans by themselves mean nothing. And plans change. Like I had a plan of how I was going to build my Rise and Grind company. I was like, we're going to do this, 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 and that. Completely derailed, right? Completely derailed because you have to be fluid and flexible. You've got to be able to make those shifts and pivots and take advantage of the opportunities. So, number one is just commit to the end result, right? And you'll figure the rest out kind of on the way. Second, the greatest car salespeople in the world, Frank Cornetti, sells over 100 cars a month. Ali Rita sold 200 cars in 1 month. He's in the Guinness Book of World Records. The greatest car salespeople in the world are the most humble humans you will ever meet in your entire life. Ego out the window, 100%. Get the ego out the window. Be humble. Go into it as a servant leader. Now, if you look up the definition of a servant leader, a lot of people throw that word around and don't even really know what it means, Nicole. So people will say, "Yeah, I'm a servant leader. I'll do anything. Somebody asks me, I'll clean the bathroom. I'll clean the toilets. If they ask me to do it, I'll do it." Servant leaders don't need to be asked. Servant leaders seek, by definition, if you look it up, a servant leader is someone who seeks opportunities to serve, seeks them, goes out looking for them, doesn't just respond to them when they come to them, goes out looking for them. And so that's what I would say would be B, right? A, commit, 100%. B, be a servant leader. Seek opportunities to serve your audience, to serve your customers, to serve your employees. Like, seek opportunities to serve. And then the last thing that I would say, if we were putting together a from salesman to entrepreneur, the last thing that I would say is be willing to do whatever it takes to be successful. Sometimes you're going to have to work from 4 in the morning until 12 at night. Sometimes you're gonna have to work days on end. Sometimes you're not gonna get your lunch. You're not gonna be able to eat. Sometimes you're gonna want to go curl up in a ball and put your thumb in your mouth in the closet and just know that that's coming and that's okay to feel that. You just can't act on that. But realize that no matter what the world is trying to show you with Instagram and Facebook and all this get rich quick and so on and so forth and cryptocurrencies and all this other stuff, dude, nothing beats willingness to do whatever it takes to get to the end. There are seasons, some are longer than others, but if you hang in there, you can create a life of freedom, which is really what we all want, right? That's why people have such a hard time defining, well, what is success to you? Ultimately, it's freedom. I want to be able to free to help people if I want to help people. I want to be free to buy things if I want to buy things. I want to be free to go on a vacation if I want. I want to be free to stay home with my kids whenever I want. I want to be free to go to a ball game. We want to be free, right? Freedom. We're Americans. We love freedom, right? And so the freedom comes after you put in the work required. The 4-hour work week is not for the new entrepreneur. The 4-hour work week is not for a good car salesman. That's not where we get that 4-hour work week. That comes after you put in the work. So those would be the three things that I would say: commit right at the gate. Uh, Secondly, what did I say was number two? Commit was number one. Number two was
Was
um,
be
I lost it.
so did I. It was so good though. I'm gonna have to listen to my own episode
It
to,
was
to
so
go
good.
back.
Commit was number one. Number two was be a servant leader.
Be a servant leader. Yes,
And
yes.
number
Definitely
three,
forget that.
know that it's going to take some hard work, but do whatever it takes to get it done.
Awesome, awesome. And what a great lesson because sometimes we can forget so quickly. We listen, we hear, we're present to something, but we've got to hear it over and over and over again to be able to have it be ingrained. But I definitely believe that salesman to entrepreneur is like a I'm you're probably going to do something with that. You'll do a video on that. So I would encourage, or a podcast on that, I'm
No
sure,
doubt.
if you haven't already. So I would encourage our listeners and viewers go and check out what Glenn is doing. You can go to Facebook Live Rise and Grind podcast. And it's a very successful show, morning show that he talked about. He also has a Facebook group, hashtag Rise and Grind, and his website, glennlundy.com. Of course, all this is going to be on the Leaders of Transformation
Yeah.
website with the notes and so forth, but
And
just
ultimately
super
at
awesome.
glennlundy.com, it'll connect to all that stuff. They can link to
Yeah,
all this stuff from glennlundy.com.
yeah. Awesome, awesome. Glenn, you are just a powerhouse of inspiration, information, so the education piece, and really that impact and empowering people to step up and be everything that they're capable of being. So, final thoughts as we wrap up.
Oh my gosh. A final thought. We talked about so many good things. Um, all right, final thought as we wrap up. I'm going to give everybody a quick little takeaway. All right. I want you to grab your pen, grab your pencil, and I want you to write the word lead, but I want you to write it top to bottom instead of left to right. All right. Now, Leadd. That's what I want you to put. Leadd. Now, right now, many of you are going, I thought this guy was smart and he just spelled lead with two D's. Lead is one D claim. No, lead with two D's. Put it on the paper. Trust me on this one. Leadd. All right. Now, next to the word or next to the letter L in lead, I want you to write the word listen. Then next to the letter E, I want you to write the word encourage. Next to the letter A, you're going to write the word advise. Next to the letter D, you're going to write the word develop. And the last D stands for daily. Listen, encourage, advise, and listen, encourage, advise, and develop, and do it daily. So great leaders follow this. This is the equation that I've extracted. This is the process after studying leader after leader after leader after leader. Here's what I found. And this simple acronym, LEAD, works in your relationships, it works with your kids, it works if you're on a prospecting sales call, any of that stuff. This works. If you go in to every interaction thinking, okay, first I'm going to listen. My mom gave me two ears and one mouth. I know your mama told you that. You got two ears, one mouth. So you need to listen twice as much as you speak, right? Two ears and one mouth. So if I'm going to go into every interaction with another human by listening first and not listening to defend, but listening with the intention to encourage, which is the E. How can I find something positive about what they're saying? How can I find a way to connect with them from a heart place, right? Immediately, if we're just listening so we can object, that doesn't make connection. We listen so that we can encourage. Oh, wow, Nicole. Yeah, that's powerful what you just said, or what you've been doing for me through this whole podcast. Glenn, wow, that's fascinating. I really love that, right? Like you've been encouraging me through the whole podcast. So if we listen first, then we encourage. So if you're with your kids and your kids telling you something and you know that the answer is no, instead of just going straight to no, we listen to what they have to say so that they feel seen, heard, and significant. And then we encourage them in whatever behavior we want more of, right? We encourage that behavior. We learned this. I've potty trained a lot of kids, so encouragement really works. Just so you guys know, my 2-year-old Fisher's the last one to be potty trained, and we encourage him with huge celebrations whenever he would go pee pee. Fisher went pee pee in the potty, yeah, woo! We celebrate, and the whole family gets in the line. We do a dance, right? Encouragement works. It has since you were a kid. It'll still work now. So we listen, we encourage. Once you've done those two things, you've listened, say it's a prospect, right? It's a buyer. You listen to the buyer, you encourage the buyer. Now you've earned the right to advise. Most managers go straight to advise. Here's what you're doing wrong. Here's what you need to do. Now get out there and kick some rear end, right? And you're like, what? Who are you talking to? No, that's not right. Most managers go straight there. Listen first, encourage, then advise, and I will receive it. Right? I'll receive it at that point because you made me feel seen, heard, and significant. You lifted me up and made me puff out my chest a little bit. And now I'm going to listen to your advice, whatever that advice may be. Right? Then on the backside of advice, you better plan on developing. Telling people what to do, but not taking the time to show them how to do it should be a cardinal sin. And I see this happen in businesses across the country. I see entrepreneurs do this all the time. I see parents do this all the time. They tell the kid what to do, but they won't take the time to show them how to do it, which creates a frustration point. You lose respect, you lose the communication, you never get anywhere, right? So make sure you take the time to develop. And then the last D, daily. This is a practice that you got to do over and over and over and over and over all the time. And it'll just become a part of your life. And you, my friend, you will open doors you never imagined could be opened if you just follow this simple acronym: listen, encourage, advise, and develop in every single conversation you have. How about
That's an awesome way to finish. Glenn, thank you so much. You are such an inspiration. Oh my goodness. For our listeners, our viewers, please go back and listen to this again. I know I will. If you need a shot in the arm, some of you feel a little low. I know that Glenn can certainly help you with that. This lead is so simple. Genius is simple.
that?
We
No doubt.
complicate things so much, and we just do some simple things and follow through, which you made a point of, is that developing is following through on it and doing it daily. It's simple, yet it's profound. And so awesome stuff. So I thank you,
Thank you.
Glenn, for sharing with us today. You've given us so much to go back and chew on. And I believe that leaders of transformation take action. Okay. So take action with this. It's great that Glenn and I had this great conversation, and he shared all this wonderful information and insight and from his experience. And it's only when you do something with it that it's going to make a difference in your life. So I encourage you to, whether it's writing down lead on a piece of paper, stick it on your mirror, stick it on your desk, your computer, somewhere where you're starting to apply this information. Training without application is just entertainment. So it's not meant to be entertainment, even though Glenn is very entertaining and inspiring and so forth, but it really goes beyond that. So I encourage you to take this and apply it. It will make a difference in your life. So we'd love to hear your stories. You can go on leadersoftransformation.com. You, of course, can find us on social and let us know how this is impacting you. If you have questions or comments, we want to hear from you. And if you even have a topic that maybe we haven't talked on here and something that's going on for you, and you're like, I want to be a leader of transformation, but I'm running up against this, let us know so that we can make sure that we support you along your journey and give you what you need to keep going. So we encourage you that. Stay in touch with us, follow us, share this with a friend. We appreciate, again, you being here, and we look forward to seeing you on the next episode of Leaders of Transformation real soon.